Hey, welcome to Graham Jones Ministries. It's great to have you here for our daily teaching video. In a moment, I'm going to jump into my series for the whole month. I'll be talking about how to receive and minister God's healing power in our lives, how to be part of a church that flows in the healing power of Jesus. I'm going to be answering questions and laying a foundation for that. Hey, couple of practical things while you're here. Do check out my website, gjm.org. Lots of good things happening there. My online ministry school. I want to say thank you to all of our ministry partners as well. They are those who commit to pray and support what we do financially. So thank you for that. If you're interested in joining that group, there's a link below. And lastly, I have a 3-hour teaching on how to receive healing. And I've seen many people healed through listening to this. We sell this, but normally we sell it, but at the moment we'd like to give it as a free gift to anybody who signs up for our email newsletter. So there'll be a link below and we will give you a digital download of this series. Great. Again, if you're on YouTube, why not hit the subscribe button there? Why not share this video with others? And let's go into that daily teaching. Well, today we're going to continue our teaching series on the subject of healing. This is part 4 of that series. In a moment, I want to read from John chapter 14. But what we've been trying to do in this first few days is just to lay a foundation that we can walk upon, that we can build upon, a foundation that's solid around the fact that God is a healer, that the church and the world really needs to see God's healing power. I've been emphasizing that every day, but I believe it really is important, and it is... I think at one level it's quite easy to compromise on that piece. As a young man, let me tell you a story, but I grew up, I came to the Lord at age 14, and I was in a great church in the town of Widnes in Cheshire in the UK. And I remember once as a young man, I was about to go and work full-time for the Assemblies of God in the UK, the denomination we were part of. And I had questions about healing. And I once made an appointment to speak with the pastor of my church, who was a lovely elderly man. He's gone to be with the Lord now. And I probably, I was young and probably was ineloquent in the way I asked my question. I made an appointment and he ushered me into his office and sat me down. He said, "Graham, what can I do for you?" And I said, "Pastor, I've got a question." And he said, "What's your question?" And I said, "Pastor, why is it nobody gets healed when you pray?" And his face straight away was like, and he was, he told me about respecting my elders and, those God had given authority over to watch for my soul, this kind of thing. And then I think I probably teared up in my eyes. I think suddenly I wasn't actually questioning him. What I was really saying is, why don't we see more people healed? Or why don't we see more people healed in our church? Or just generally, I wasn't targeting him. And I was saying, why don't we see the miracles we see in the Bible in our life and in our church? And suddenly this guy did this U-turn. He came from behind his enormous desk and sat down next to me, and he just gave me a hug. He's a really great guy. And he said a few really great things. He said to me, "Graham," he said, "I don't know." But he put this kind of big finger in my chest and he said, "Don't stop asking that question. Keep asking the question." And then he looked at me and he quoted Matthew 7, he said, "Everyone who asks receives, he who seeks finds, and he who knocks, it shall be opened." And he said, if you keep asking, God will give you answers. And he kind of looked back reflexively and he said, somewhere along my journey, I stopped asking that question so much. He said, I used to see more than I do now. And he said, it's like I kind of became okay. I lowered my expectation a little bit. Now, he was a great man of God and he saw people healed. My point's not criticizing him there, but his words to me was, I stopped asking that. I kind of became okay with what happened and what didn't. And then he said to me something which just stayed with me all the days of my life. He said, never need an answer so badly that you begin to believe a lie. And I believe to a large degree that is what the church has done with this subject. It's like we so want answers that we end up accepting things which are really not that biblical. And I've seen many people do that. It's like we see Jesus heal 100% of the time, and then we look at our lives or our churches or our movements, and we maybe Maybe we see healing 50% of the time. I don't think we see that. I would say 5% of the time, frankly, but we see a little bit. And we try to reconcile the two. The danger is we end up dragging Jesus down to our level. Or we end up just pretending that what we see is here when it's not, it's here. And I think what we should do is accept where we're at, but raise our level to the level of Jesus. That's what I believe the Lord is doing in these days and in this generation. I believe He's trying to raise the bar of faith, the bar of expectation within the church. And what I want to cover with you guys today, I want to talk about God's will again. I just want to finish where I began yesterday. How do we know if it's God's will to heal? Now, some people would say, well, we should pray whether it's God's will to heal. Can I say to you, there are things we should pray about and there are things we should not pray about. You don't need to pray whether it's God's will that you go and randomly kill somebody. You don't need to pray if it's God's will you should go and rape somebody or rob a bank or, burn somebody's home down for no reason. Don't pray about it. If you come to me and you say, Graham, I prayed and I felt God say I should go and rob 10 banks today, I will say that was not God. I don't care how many goosebumps, how many angels you felt fill the room. I'm not interested. It contradicted the word of God. And it's the same thing with healing. Really, your opinion and my opinion, my church's opinion, your church's opinion, is not that interesting. What matters is the word of God. What matters is Jesus. And Jesus is the perfect representation of God. Now, John 14, if you found it. In John 14, verse 8, Philip says to Jesus, show us the Father, and it will be sufficient for us. In verse 9, John 14:9, Jesus says, have I been with you so long, and you have not known me, Philip? He who has seen me has seen the Father. And I want you to see that Jesus is the perfect representative. He represents the Father to the world. Yeah? I am not, Billy Graham is not, you are not, Benny Hinn is not, your favorite Christian throughout church history is not, Jesus is. So Jesus says, when you see me, John 1 says, nobody's ever seen the Father, but the only begotten Son has declared him unto us. He says in John 6:38, I came not to do my will, but the will of him who sent me. He said in John 10, verse 30, I and the Father are one. He said here in John 14:9, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. Paul says in Colossians 1:15, Jesus is the mirror image of the Father. The writer to the Hebrews in Hebrews 1 says he's the express representation of God's purpose. When we see Jesus, we see the Father. So if you want to know God's will on healing, read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. It's really that simple. And again, nobody came to Jesus who wanted healing and was not healed. Now, at times they had to go through barriers. At times they had to go through internal barriers, like blind Bartimaeus did, like who's the leader of the synagogue whose daughter was healed? Jairus. No, I'm forgetting her name. Whatever. My point is, at times there were like interior things about being seen in public, about humbling themselves that they go through. At times there were physical barriers, like the 4 guys who brought their paralytic friend and they couldn't get into the meeting, so they smashed a hole through the roof. At times there was they even had to break the law to get to Jesus, like the leper, like the woman with the issue of blood. At times there were physical barriers, like the people crowding Jesus and that woman with the issue of blood pushed her way through. And at times it was a struggle to get to Jesus. And I'm not saying for you and I, it will never be a struggle. The leper came to Jesus and one of his barriers was, is it God's will? He said, Lord, if you are willing, you can heal me. And Jesus said, I will be healed. He kicked the if into touch. So he had to battle with that own place there. So at times people have got to, there's a battle to get to Jesus. But I would say it was always God's will to heal in Jesus. And the great news is, and I'll finish with this, Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever. There's no shadow of turning in him. There's no wiggle room in Jesus. It's not you come one day and he's like this and you come another day he's like that. Jesus is who he says he is. Boom. So I hope that's helpful, guys. We're going to continue and get real practical next week on how we actually receive from him. Hey, I encourage you to check out some of the other videos below there and my weekly Q&A session, and drop me a line. I'd be glad to hear from you. Thanks for watching.